In a few minutes, I'm going to show you a video interview that I conducted with a Catholic priest in Nigeria, where we discuss the current situation, which most people, presumably you as well, are unaware of, if you've been following the supposed media, both liberal and conservative. There we go with those words again. But before I do so, let me tell you how this all started, how I got to know this priest, and how this interview came about. About a month ago in August, I received an email from a Catholic charity group that was helping Christians in Nigeria. And it said, "I have some very sad and distressing news, and I was hoping that you might be able to help. The news media is not covering this topic, and Catholics in Nigeria are not sure how to seek out help. Father Samuel Maria from Nigeria, a native and pastor of over 10,000 souls, has just informed me that the Muslims have been advancing for months and are very close to them, and things are getting very desperate. Their situation is becoming very dire, and he would like to do another interview with any U.S. media that would like to hear an update specifically regarding how the Muslims are advancing and killing innocent souls. As you know very well, it is not politically correct today to speak out against the Muslims, and thus many news media do not want to hear or report what is going on." I essentially agreed to have an interview with Father Abba Samuel Maria is his name, and we set a date for sometime in September. About a week later, I received another email from that same person of that Catholic charity, and in it they quoted Father Abba Samuel Maria himself in an email he wrote to them. So he wrote on August 13th the following, quote, "St. Paul's Parish, Ayatwar Rectory, which I sacrificed everything to build, was set ablaze by Fulani jihadists yesterday. The church windows, glasses were broken, and the people successfully sacked from their ancestral homes. Kudos to the Nigerian army for successfully disarming the people and making them vulnerable to their attackers. The cries of the people echo through the land as the Fulani invaders, equipped with logistic and high-level intelligence provided by the military personnel, attack and slaughtered unarmed civilians in their sleep, leaving a trail of blood flowing like a river. Justice, integrity, dignity, humanity, all lost in the fray, a nation's future uncertain each passing day." And then the person who emailed me after quoting this from the priest said, "Please let me know if you can do an interview with Father on this topic ASAP, or have you any other ideas on how to bring awareness to the crisis they're currently experiencing. We greatly appreciate it, as he is remaining faithful in these diabolical times, trusting in our Lord and our Blessed Mother for the triumph of her Immaculate Heart." Okay. And again, for the record, just so everyone knows, I'm not Catholic. This is a Catholic group, of course, and a Catholic priest that I'm going to speak to. But whether you're Catholic or not doesn't change the facts that you're going to be hearing about what's happening there. But then before we could have our interview on September 11th, the same priest, Father Abba Samuel, sent an email to the person who was writing to me saying that they had received in Arabic a Muslim Jihad declaration, essentially. And here it is. He had people translate it. So it says, quote, here's the quote, "Translation of pamphlet written in Arabic and distributed in select mosques in northern Nigeria by the Fulani nationalist movement." And this letter was apparently dated February 6th, 2025. And in this letter it says, "The battle is getting closer. We call on all true Muslims. This is the time to act. This is the time for Second Holy War. We started in 1804. The British stopped us. We must regain the territories lost. It is against Islam to rotate power with infidels. Forget about elections. That will only lead to sharing of power. Think of the kingdom that we shall rule forever. We must take the enemies in the west, central, and the north," they mean in Nigeria, "by surprise, because most Muslims live in the north. So they want to attack the enemies, mostly Christians, in the west central. That is the plot. Disperse and occupy their homes, forests, streets, schools, markets, and act as spies. You will suffer in this. Rain, cold, and dust will pour on you. But heaven will honor you after the inevitable battles. Our attacks on the infidels must be total and overwhelming. We must begin by instilling fear in them, weaken their resolve through kidnaps, brutal rapes, making it difficult for them to farm, and subdue them before the war. Our strategies involves learning from the tactics of the past and merging it with the wisdom of the moment. There is no going back. Nigeria is our own. It was handed over to us by Allah. How then can we share what is ours? We must never fight a defensive war. We must take the battle to the homes of the infidels. We must use everything that we have, whether you are a boy, a lady, a man, or a woman. All Muslims of Fulani origin must take this as a duty. We must sharpen our fighting weapons. Everything is a weapon. Your Okada, knives, hands, the trailers you drive, the tankers with fuel, food you sell, the house of the infidels that you guard. Study very well and wait for our order. Exploit the weaknesses of the infidels. They're lousy, lack discipline, sleep like fools, love parties and dances, lack focus, mostly unobservant and unarmed. With your vantage position, you can take on a whole family of 10. Conquer and kill them if need be. The battle must be fought in their homeland. The middle belt must be totally crushed. They are few and divided. Never trust anyone in the east and south, which is Christian majority. Not even their filthy Muslims who do everything Allah rejects. Get yourself prepared. The battle is near. What this is saying is basically even the Muslims who live amongst Christians in those areas in the south and the center are infidels too, because they live amongst Christians. So you can kill them as well. And then the email that sent this to me ended up by saying, please circulate to all Christian groups urgently so awareness would be created and prayers continuously made for the land. Okay, so you will now see the interview that I conducted with Father Abba Samuel Maria. And first of all, unfortunately, because he was on location in Nigeria, that's where he's from, the connection was very bad. And so what ended up happening is we had a third party helping record it, and I couldn't even hear what he was saying. So, but you'll see what he says. Everything is actually put together. But I tell you that because what I ended up doing is just asking various questions, and then everything was added on later, even though I couldn't even hear it or see it at the time. And so I tell you that because you'll hear him speaking very passionately about very, very important and horrific stuff. And then the screen will come to me and I'm basically kind of nonchalant and I just ask another question. So that's the reason. I didn't even know. I'm only seeing it now, the entire video. And so first I urge you to listen very carefully to this man. This is a man who is in the middle of the fray. Okay, this is what's really happening where Muslims are actually half the nation. Think about it. Nigeria is half Christian, half Muslim. At this point, Muslims don't need to play the victim card as they do in the West. And it's a full-blown, non-stop jihad. As you'll see in the intro, I speak a little bit about what I know has been going on in Nigeria, and I know a fair bit. I've actually been writing a lot about it since probably around 2011, and I think I say this in the video. But everything that I just read to you, that is real. Okay, these Fulani, and the Fulani are these herdsmen who are also Islamic, and full-on jihadist mentality. But as you will see in the video, the media won't tell you that. And the Catholic priest affirms this. But they do, in fact, raid Christian villages in the middle of the night or when they're in churches and completely horrific slaughter. Massacres, rapes, burning churches with Christians inside of them. This is a very, very constant thing. Okay, so do pay attention. And at the same time, remember what I said. I recently did a live stream about the left, if you recall. And I did a little bit of talking about what the left and Islam really have in common. Because if the left is just liberal, as most people seem to think, it never made sense, right? Why are liberals siding with draconian Sharia Muslims? But as I argued, the left and Islam are very similar in that they both are aligned with falsehoods, different falsehoods. Okay, or a different way of looking at it as they're both not aligned with the truth. Okay, and so they are allies for one another in their massive war on the truth. Okay, so keep that in mind, especially as you hear him and he's telling you the truth of what's really happening. And you ask yourself, how come I never heard this? How come the media doesn't talk about this? How come Fox News hasn't told me about this? Okay, why do the conservative so-called media waste more time talking about pronouns as if that's the real problem at stake when people are actually being burned alive and killed and hacked to pieces with machetes almost on a daily basis, actually. And if you want to learn more about what's happening in Nigeria, you should consult my monthly Muslim Persecution of Christians report published by the Gatestone Institute, where I basically collate the sorts of persecution Christians experience at the hands of Muslims every month. And by far the worst is going to be Nigeria, as you'll see. And these go back all the way to 2011. You can find them on my website or the Gatestone Institute. And without any further ado, here's the video. Welcome, everyone. I'm joined by a great guest and to talk about a very important topic that very few people in the West, especially in America, know. It's an important topic because it deals with the genocide you've never heard about. And He is Father Abba Samuel Maria, and he's a Catholic priest in Nigeria. And before we get going, I'm just going to have him introduce himself in a couple of minutes. Have at it, Father.
Thank you very much, Mr. Raymond Ibrahim. And we are very, very appreciative for the wonderful work you are doing to create awareness on the terrible situation we are facing here in Nigeria. I am Father Samuel Maria Abba from originally Otukpo Diocese, but in 2020, after the pandemic of the so-called pandemic of the COVID-19, I began the congregation of the Sacred and Immaculate Hearts of Jesus and Mary congregation, where we keep the traditional Catholic Mass and faiths and morals of our one holy, tried, and apostolic faith of the Catholic Church. So I thank Mr. Raymond Ibrahim for this interview.
Thank you very much, Father Abba. So I will begin by telling you and the viewers what I know about the situation in Nigeria, which I've actually been following for probably since at least 2011. And I look forward to you, like I said, correcting or confirming and then elaborating on the important points. So what I recall with Nigeria is basically it's half Christian, half Muslim. That's the way it's usually portrayed. And the Muslims generally seem to be in the northern region, and the Christians generally seem to be in the southern region. And in the northern region, you have various forms of Sharia law and so forth, and it's not exactly ideal for Christians to live in the north. But I think Nigeria sort of came in the spotlight somewhat in the international scene with the rise of Boko Haram back in the, like I said, 2010 or whatever. And they are, of course, an Islamic terrorist organization, which definitely targeted and massacred and slaughtered and killed Christians and bombed and blew up their churches. Many of them, dozens. I would say, actually, because I write reports every month about the persecution of Christians around the Muslim world, it's very clear Nigeria is apparently the absolute worst, okay, at least when it comes to the numbers of Christians who are being killed and just being persecuted and churches being attacked. Anyway, that went on for a long time until somehow, maybe like, I don't know, 5-10 years ago, all of a sudden it became the Fulani herdsmen who started now taking up the slaughter of Christians. Okay. But the narrative changed. So now the Boko Haram, from my perspective, seem to somehow fade in the background. We don't hear too much about them engaged in acts of terror as before, but the acts of terror are greater than ever. And now they're at the hands of these so-called Fulani herdsmen, who I believe the vast majority of them are Muslim. Okay. And it seems to me from what I read between the lines, they are also radicalized by Islamic ideology. They believe what they're doing is jihad. They enter Christian settlements and villages, usually in the middle of the night or after or on Saturday night, right before church, and they slaughter and kill and devastate and burn. And a lot of them, according to witnesses, scream things like Allahu Akbar, and it's very clear they're radicalized. Okay, but in the West, the narrative is that these Fulani have nothing to do with Islamic radicalization or anything, that this is all a land dispute, that the Fulani have been driven out of their homes due to climate change, and that they are not in any way, shape, or form ideologically motivated against, let's say, Christians. In fact, they try to blur the line. They won't even say one's Muslim or one's Christian. It's as if it's sedentary people versus nomadic herdsmen. But of course, it seems to me the nomadic herdsmen are mostly Muslims and the sedentary are Christians. And of course, I think Muslims who live among the Christians get killed too. They're collateral damage and so forth. So that's the general gist that I've seen, and I'm frankly shocked and disgusted at the Western media, but like I said, you'll correct me, and the analysts, and I've seen many people from Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, the Obama administration, all of them talking about, what's happening has nothing to do with religion at all, whatsoever. Okay, it's something else. It's, like I said, climate change, and to his credit, I even remember Donald Trump, when he was president in the first term, with Muhammadu Buhari, he asked him, "Why are you killing Christians?" And to his credit, at least he brought that question up. And that's the other point I hear, that the government, whether it's Buhari or not, is somehow complicit. They either turn a blind eye when the Fulani are killing and destroying, or sometimes they're there and they don't help at all, or sometimes I've even heard they help the terrorists. Okay, so that seems to be the situation for me. And I've read statistics like in Nigeria, something like one Christian is killed every 2 hours because of their Christian identity. Okay, so that's the summary that someone like me, who's moderately educated by American standards regarding Nigeria, we never hear about this. Okay, here in America, I often point out, maybe you're familiar with something like Black Lives Matter in America, and people always say Black Lives Matter, but I've often pointed out they don't matter, obviously, if they're in Nigeria and if they're Christian. So yeah, I'll hand it over to you now, and you can, like I said, elaborate, confirm, or refute anything I said.
So it's quite interesting because it's a jihad. I got this information just some few days ago about the National Fulani Movement, dated February 6th, 2025. The battle is getting closer. We call on all true Muslims, this is the time to act. This is the time for Second Holy War. We started in 1804. In the early 19th century, they started this particular jihad. The British stopped us. We must regain the territories lost. It is against Islam to rotate power with infidels. Forget about election. That will only lead to sharing of power. Think of the kingdom that we shall rule forever. We can change the naughty history. Usman Danfodio, he was the one that began the jihad, did it successfully. We can do it too. We must take the enemies in the west, central, and the north by surprise. That is the plot. Disperse and occupy their homes, forests, streets, schools, markets, and act as spies. You will suffer in this. Rain, cold, and dust will pour on you, but heaven will honor you after the inevitable battles. They are kind of heaven, of course. Our attacks on the infidels must be total and overwhelming. We must begin by instilling fear in them, weakening their resolve through kidnaps, brutal rapes, making it difficult for them to farm and subdue them before the war. This exactly is what they are doing, and they are still doing it. The write-up continues. Our strategies involves learning from the tactics of the past and merging it with the wisdom of the moment. There is no going back. Nigeria is our own. It was handed over to us by Allah. Of course, not the God I worship. Allah is not the Trinitarian God. And that's why it's so sad to see what the Vatican is doing with the Muslims in recent times. How then can we share what is ours? We must never fight a defensive war. The Catholic Bishops' Conference of Nigeria are fighting a defensive war, whereas these people are ransacking and taking over villages, raping, taking over lands and territories, farmlands. People are living in constant fear. Everybody is worried. Everybody is afraid. And we are not allowed to take up arms to fight for ourselves. The government, the military, parastatals are all taken over by these particular sets of jihadists. They are everywhere in government. They're like the Freemasons. They are the ones in control of the Nigeria economy, the Nigeria army, the Nigerian politics, and so on and so forth. The reading continues. We must take the battle to the homes of the infidels. We must use everything that we have, whether you are a boy, a lady, a man, or a woman. All Muslims of Fulani origin must take this as a duty. You must sharpen our fighting weapons. Everything is a weapon. Your Okada, that's the motorcycle, your knives, your hands, the trailers you drive, the tankers with fuel, food you sell. It's alleged that most food gotten from them these days are poisoned, and this poisonous food goes ahead to kill. They know what it is, they identify it, and they give it to the infidels according to them, and people die in their numbers. The houses of the infidels, the reading continues, that you guard, because most of them, they work as security men in people's houses. Study very well and wait for our order. Exploit the weakness of the infidels. They are lousy, they lack discipline, they sleep like fools, love parties and dances, lack focus, mostly unobservant and unharmed. See, this is the reason why whenever they strike, people cannot defend themselves, because they come when you are least expecting. Sometimes people are in the churches, they come, they burn the churches, burn the people in the churches. It is a jihad, and they are serious, and people are dying in their numbers. With your vantage, the reading continues, position, you can take on a whole family of 10, conquer and kill them if it need be. The battle must be fought in their homeland. The middle belt must be totally crushed. They are few and divided. Never trust anyone in the east and south, not even their filthy Muslims. Now, this is those people who claim to be Muslims in the west and also in the east and in the south. They don't consider them as true Muslims. You are either Fulani Muslims or you are an infidel. Not even their filthy Muslims who do everything Allah rejects. Get yourself prepared. The battle is near. So, they ask that this should be circulated around Christians. So, it is clear. Mr. Ibrahim, in his research, is not wrong. What he's saying is a fact. We are witnesses to it. Just last month, they went to Yelwata. It's not too far from where we are here. It's just a 20 minutes drive. They ransacked the whole village. Even Pope Leo the 14th commented on this the next day. Ransacked the whole village, bound people alive, ran away, and not a single culprit have been caught. And very close to Yelwata, we have the army barrack. Still close to Yelwata, we have the Air Force barrack. We have the naval barrack. So how come they strike and they go? Because they are the ones in control of those barracks. So whatever he's saying is the truth. And people are shying away from it. And souls in their numbers are being killed. Villages are being ransacked. People's lives are being wasted. It's terrible. It's very, very terrible. And it's sad that the Nigerian government is quiet about it. For crying out loud, who's the Nigerian government? The Nigerian government is them. They're in politics, they're in economy, they're even the one deciding what should take place in the country. So it is sad. And I think only the Lord can help us now. That is why we at SSIH, Sacred and Immaculate Hearts of Jesus and Mary Congregation, we are out for the reign of the Sacred Heart of Jesus and the triumph of the Immaculate Heart of Mary through the acceptance of the true traditional Catholic Mass and the true Catholic faith and morals. This is a crusade. And with God on our side, the Sacred Heart will truly reign and the Immaculate Heart will truly triumph.
Okay, thanks for that answer, Father Abba. Can you speak some more about the question of Islamic radical ideology and really home in and focus in on to what extent is that really behind what's happening, and what is being taught to the Muslims of Nigeria, for example? Are they being taught that the Christians, I think I read somewhere that they're seen as invaders, remnants of colonialism, hence Boko Haram, right? Western education or whatever is a sin, haram. Is that how they're presented? Is it presented as a full-blown jihad, to destroy and kill the infidels? And what's the situation with churches? I hear, like I said, I've been following the persecution of Christians by Muslims for since 2011, actually, and one of my books is all about it, Crucified Again, which came out in 2013. And I would say the most churches that I've seen burned and bombed and destroyed, oftentimes with Christians in them, are in Nigeria. Egypt maybe is a close second, or it has been for a while, back in the 2010s and 19, or before 2020. But maybe you can speak a little to that, please.
The average Muslims are being taught to be radicals, because with the result of what we are getting currently, Either they are being taught to be radicals and to see other people in the same vicinities like themselves as infidels. Infidels, people who are against Allah, against Muhammad, against the Islamic movement. So it is clear because they do not recognize the fact that people exist before they came to the country. And so, for them, they indoctrinate their faithfuls, and their faithful carries out this plan. See, they are very organized, and that's a fact. So the average Muslims goes out through their, what they call it, this their school, their Islamic schools, and there they are indoctrinated. If they're relating with you, it's with a plan. They don't come to you without a plan. And all this noise about Islam is for peace, certainly it's not the kind of Muslims we have in Nigeria. They have an agenda, and that agenda is being materialized because the killings are going on daily. And unfortunately, many villages have been ransacked. People have taken their wares and their businesses from the north down to the middle belt where we reside, and now some of them are taking it back to the east and to the west. You see it now. So if it's not real, these business people and families would not have vacated from those environments. They want to Islamize the country. It is a fact. It is real. And not just getting converts, they want to force their way through and own Nigeria as their own. So Mr. Raymond Ibrahim is not wrong. He is, in his analysis, is correct. They are pushing us away until we get frustrated, probably look for another country to go to, because for them, Nigeria is theirs.
What do you think of how the West has been handling this? Are they intentionally, the media, for example, dissembling and pretending this is all just about climate change, as I pointed out earlier? I remember that's actually what the Irish president or prime minister said after one of the worst bombings of a church in Nigeria. I think it was Palm Sunday, maybe 3-4 years ago, something like 50 or 60 or more Christians were killed. And it was the Fulani. And he came out vehemently saying, you know, all you horrible people, how dare you blame the Fulani? They're innocent victims too. This has nothing to do with the religion. And then he started talking about climate change, etc. So basically, what's the situation in churches? Are Christians, when they gather in churches, essentially terrified they might be blown up or killed, seeing how common it is?
Yes, it is strange to see the Western media not reporting exactly what is taking place here. As I said earlier on, it's a jihad. Villages are being ransacked. Lives are being wasted in their numbers. Now, if the media reports 4,000 persons, be rest assured about 10,000 have gone. So, one cannot come out clearly to say the media has been bought, because we don't know who is doing the buying. But those of us who are here experiencing this terrible massacre, we are aware that villages in their numbers are being ransacked. So if the media internationally have the facilities to truly know what is happening, why can't they report exactly what we are experiencing here? Because you go to a village, you burn in the village, people's lives are wasted, people's properties, their food are burnt. And you come back after some time and repeat the same feat, and nobody is caught. Can we say the Nigerian government don't have what it takes to catch these persons? Don't we have state boundaries? So when some people come down, our forests are they so massive that we cannot track down people? For example, look at the kidnappings going on. The same forest in Nigeria here, Are we saying the government don't have drones to locate these persons and bring them to the book? All we hear every now and then, we shall get them, we shall get them, and nobody gets caught. So it is terrible. The media, to my own knowledge, is not reporting correctly what is happening. Either they have been bought, or they don't want to report it, or they are part of the plan.
What is, thank you for that. What would you say, what message do you most want to convey to, let's say, the Western public, people in Europe in general, in the US in particular, about what's really happening in Nigeria and how they should respond to it, including, of course, how they've been responding and what they've been told, which I assume is all false?
It's a spiritual battle. It's a spiritual battle. And as it stands now, they are out to Islamize the whole country, not just Islamize, to wipe out Christians in Nigeria, because they were able to get their way into the government. The British government felt that the northern oligarchy were more subservient to their plan of divide and rule. And so they concentrated powers to the north. Because the other tribes in Nigeria, they were more or less like a democracy, especially the Igbos. They are more or less a democracy. The Yorubas, of course, they have leaders, and they are very, very fetish. But the North, the system of government pleased the British, who colonized this country. And so, when they put power in the hands of the North, with their jihadist agenda, they now concentrated themselves on this power and began to rule the country ever since. So for you to be elected into any federal office, you must lick the boots of the Northerners. If not, you will not get there. So they now use these powers to manipulate their ways to carry out their Fulani agenda of Islamizing the country. So this is exactly what is happening. And with this, it is almost impossible to stop them because they are everywhere. All the military, all the parastatals, all the political, they are there. Why? Because they know what it is to rule. For example, Sokoto, where their caliphate is titled Born to Rule. That's the title they get to Sokoto, Born to Rule. Born to rule who? Born to rule the rest of Nigerians and submerge them into their jihadist agenda. So the West can only come in now by telling them that Nigeria is a country of so many religions, and the freedom to worship God, the true God, is a right of every human being. And the true God is the Catholic God. That is why we, in our own little way, for the reign of the Sacred Heart of Jesus and the Immaculate Heart of Mary, form the Society of the Sacred Immaculate Heart to bring about the true reign of Christ our King and the Queenship of Our Lady. So it is a spiritual battle, and victory is assured. A luta continua victoria assarte. Our Lady will certainly triumph, and our Lord will certainly reign. But for the West, what is happening in many countries in the world, if they don't come to help us with this crisis, tomorrow you will hear that Nigeria is now an Islamic country.
Okay, thank you for that very comprehensive view. Thanks for joining us, and I leave you the last word. Any final thoughts or words you'd like to share with us are, of course, welcome.
Mr. Raymond Ibrahim, who is doing so much to see that the true story of what is taking place in the country of Nigeria and most African countries that have been invaded by the Fulani herdsmen and their jihadic plans. You know, it's like the Crusaders, when the earlier popes were able to fight this with the rosary and also were able to gain so much victory. Now is a turn for Nigerians. It's half-half, the Muslims and the Christians. And most of these lands we're talking about, they are Christian lands. These people came in and started invading, and they took over step by step. So they are not giving up. But unfortunately for us down here, there is no formidable force that will stop them from the killings, except God intervenes. If the international media and the United Nations can come into this problem and help us out, it will be very, very nice. But as you can see, it's not only Nigeria that are doing this. They are doing this in most lands. Even in Europe, they're taking over almost every places. So it is so, it's a serious, so they know what they are doing. So if God can help us in this situation, which we know he can really help us, you know, we will support any group that is going about bringing about the restoration. And that is why, in our own little way, we decided to form ourselves into groups of young men and young girls, praying before the Blessed Sacrament, living a life of penance, life of reparation, in the sight of the Sacred and Immaculate Heart, to bring about the restoration. Because we know that it's only through God that the peace can be gotten. Our Lady of Fatima said, at last, my Immaculate Heart will triumph, and the Sacred Heart will reign. So we trust in God. Currently, we are securing the different places we have our chapels, because our chapels are close to these areas that are possible areas for invasion. So we need help. We need people to help us so we can secure this land, fence the land, protect the nuns who are daily praying for us, and protect the seminarians and the sisters who are carrying out all these means spiritually to bring about the restoration. So this is what we are asking for. We need help to carry out our programs, because almost everybody seems to be silent about the insurgency that is going on. Lives are being lost, and most of these lives being lost have not received the sacrament of baptism. And it's our intention to go to the grassroots and evangelize and bring them to Christ. Bring Christ to the souls of these people before this marauding Fulani herdsmen will come and they come and kill them, and probably they go to hellfire. We don't want that to happen. So we are a formidable force that is trying to see how we can bring about the restoration through prayer, penance, sacrifices, and the celebration of the Tridental Catholic Mass as a remnant group in Nigeria. Thank you, and God bless.
Okay. Thank you, Father, and thank you, everyone, for joining us.